The Asantehene Otumfuo Osei Tutu II gave a historic lecture on the platform of the two world-leading museums, the British Museum and the Victoria and Albert Museum in London on Friday. Under the topic of Asante culture, past and present, and cultural heritage, it was part of a new cultural cooperation between the two museums and the Manhyia Palace Museum. It also followed the return to Kumasi on loans of 32 objects from these museums in April, which are now part of the homecoming exhibition at the Manhyia Palace Museum. The Asantehene, who was introduced by the eminent philosopher and president of the American Academy of Arts, Professor Kwame Anthony Appiah, who pointed out the significance of the occasion of the 150 years of the 1874 Anglo-Asante War, the centenary of the return of Prempeh from exile, and the silver jubilee of the Asantehene.
For this year is the 150th anniversary of the ending of the Third Anglo-Asante War in 1874, with the sacking of Kumasi by Sir Garnet Wolseley, Sagrenti to us, who entered the capital unopposed and committed a series of what would now be thought of as war crimes. Among the objects of his destructive campaign was a large stone building in the city's centre, the Abai, that Nana Osei Bonsu had created, inspired by talk of the British Museum. As Wolseley prepared to loot and blow up the Abai, European and American journalists were allowed to visit it. The Daily Telegraph described it as the museum, for museum it should be called, where the art treasures of the monarchy were stored. The London Times spoke of books in many languages, Bohemian glass, clocks, silver plate, old furniture, Persian rugs, Kidderminster carpets, pictures and engravings, numberless chests and coffers. The New York Herald spoke of scimitars of Arab make, damask bed curtains and counterpanes, English engravings, an oil painting of a gentleman, an old uniform of a West Indian soldier, brass blunderbusses, prints from illustrated newspapers, and among much else, copies of the Times of London. So some of what will be going back now was taken then. But let's turn to the second entirely joyful anniversary we record today, which is the centenary of the return of Nana Prempeh I from exile in the Seychelles to Kumasi, authorized, you'll recall, by a British government that included my great-grandfather as Secretary of the Colonies.
The Asantehene spoke of cooperation and asked for resolution of regulations leading to restitution challenges in Africa.
The demand for the restitution of the looted artifacts was first made by Prempeh I when he returned from Seychelles in 1924. In 1946, my uncle Ajman Prempeh II made similar appeals and entered into some levels of negotiations, all of which fell apart. At that time, the Gold Coast was agog with anti-colonial fervor, and even though he had been given a knighthood in recognition of his leadership, there was no progress on his quest to have the items back in Kumasi.
Young.
I presume the colonial authorities had more pressing issues on their hands than the fate of what may have been perceived as some inconsequential tribal objects.
Young.
He also hinted of a likely international conference in Kumasi to look at issues to do with looted cultural property from the colonial. There is also the likely collaboration with the UNESCO on this and how the current generation of Ghanaians can appreciate the returned objects and those likely to come from other European sources.
When we seriously engaged with the two museums, I set my team a target to make sure my people would see their stolen ornaments back in Kumasi for the silver jubilee of our reign.
Young.
I'm proud we achieved this, and a number of our prize ornaments are now resting within the palace from where they were forcibly extracted.
Young.
Even so, we do not and cannot pretend that the agreement we have offers the solution to the issue of restitution. What it does is to acknowledge the impediments in the path, not in order to submit to it, but to find avenues for fruitful engagement while continuing to seek the appropriate rational resolution.
Young.
In days gone by, our nations needed brave hearts to win wars. Today, we need great minds to win souls.
Young.
Our brave warriors knew how to navigate through the dense forest to engage and overcome enemies. We now need our great minds to navigate the dense fog of problems to win friends.
Young.
That is the new Asante reality. It remains our unalterable position that articles of cultural importance looted or procured in unethical circumstances through the colonial enterprise must be restored to their origins. This is the position of UNESCO and the position clearly endorsed by the government of France.
Young.
We are mindful of some residual resistance, but in the main, we will contend that all of us in this room are victims of a system in need of updating. We are either victims of a system that denies us justice or victims of a system that prevents us from administering justice and doing what we know to be the right thing.
Young.
From both sides, we need with sincerity to appeal to our conscience. Nobody disputes the fact that much of the cultural objects at issue were obtained in illegal or unethical circumstances. Can anyone in good conscience sustain the enactment of a law to protect illegality? That has to be a monumental challenge to jurisprudence, and I dare say a challenge to what I unshakably believe to the British justice.
Young.
My sincere hope is that in the fullness of time, sooner than later, state authorities will take steps to review laws contrived to protect illegalities and permit all concerned to apply themselves to the rational resolution of the challenge of restitution. I stand ready in the spirit of international harmony to invite the world to Kumasi for a global conference to seek universal consensus on the peaceful and rational restitution of illegally procured cultural objects.
Young.
The director of the British Museum expressed his appreciation and that of the Victoria and Albert for coming to deliver the lecture.
Your Royal Majesty, welcome. It's a great privilege to host you here tonight, and please again accept our congratulations on behalf of the British Museum on your Silver Jubilee. The Museum was delighted to receive Your Royal Majesty at the British Museum last year, and I would like to thank you for hosting my colleagues in Kumasi during the recent visit in May and for providing them with such a friendly and welcoming reception. The relationship between the Golden Stool of Asante and the British Museum is one which is now 200 years old. And we were delighted that the visit of Your Royal Majesty to the British Museum last year was the catalyst for signing a new memorandum of understanding between the Golden Stool and the British Museum. The recent collaboration on the exhibition in Kumasi and this lecture are the first results of this new phase in our relationship, and we look forward to continuing this partnership with new projects. Today, the British Museum is firmly committed to building productive and beneficial relationships around these collections. We thank Your Royal Majesty for your wisdom and leadership in fostering this strong partnership.
And we should all be grateful to Ivor Manhyia and Malcolm MacLeod, old friend of Asante and once keeper of ethnography here at the British Museum, for successfully negotiating this happy outcome.
Present at the event was former President John Agyekum Kufuor, eminent Ghanaians and diplomats. Also Lord Boate's rich Ghanaian kente was on display